What do you do when your district manager tells you everything's fine, but your gut says something's off? Xavier Owens stood in the back of his black SUV, pulling a plain black cap lower over his forehead. The valet uniform fit snug across his shoulders, standard gray shirt, black slacks, polished shoes. He looked nothing like the owner of the 6-location upscale steakhouse chain his late father built from the ground up. The family name wasn't on the buildings. Most employees didn't even know what he looked like. That was by design. This particular location, the one in the downtown business district, had been racking up complaints. Customers reported long waits for their cars, poor attitudes from attendants, even a few accusations of car damage. When he asked for explanations, the location manager, Darren, was defensive. Just entitled customers, he'd said. The district manager, Tom, backed him up. It's isolated. Xavier didn't buy it. So here he was, using a new alias, Jordan, a fresh trainee sent over from a staffing agency. The agency itself was real, but they owed Xavier a favor. The disguise was enough. He'd grown a beard, wore fake glasses, and used a slight southern accent. No one here had ever met him. None of the valets at any location had. They worked in a high-turnover corner of the business. Pay was decent, but the hours were rough. His first shift started at 4 p.m. sharp. The sun beat down on the valet stand outside the restaurant's sleek glass doors. Music from inside spilled out every time the door opened. You're late. He didn't offer a name. Xavier checked his watch. I'm 5 minutes early. The guy shrugged. Whatever. You'll be running cars tonight. Don't mess up. The manager, Darren, didn't introduce himself. He just glanced at Xavier, muttered, "You're the temp," and waved him off. Follow someone. Don't get in the way. No welcome. No training. Just dumped into the rush. Xavier started hustling. Every time a car pulled up, he sprinted to the door, greeted guests with a smile, and took the keys. Most of the other valets leaned against the wall between waves. 2 of them took smoke breaks every half hour. Darren didn't say a word. By 7, Xavier had run more cars than anyone else. Then a young man jogged in, tossing on his uniform shirt as he slowed to a walk. He looked exhausted. Mid-20s, short brown hair, dark circles under his eyes. He grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, took a sip, and immediately ran to take a guest's car. Who's that? Xavier asked one of the other valets. That's Eli, the guy said, rolling his eyes. Dude's always showing up, even when he's not scheduled. Freaking overachiever. Xavier watched Eli jog back, hand a ticket to the hostess, and take another set of keys. He moved with urgency but not panic. Professional. Fast. Polite. By 9 p.m., Xavier noticed something strange. Eli hadn't stopped moving since he arrived. He wasn't just covering his shift. He was doing other people's jobs too. At one point, when a guest's Porsche stalled, Eli calmly helped, called the guest over, explained the issue, and offered to call a mechanic. Darren had been inside the whole time. After the rush slowed, Xavier caught up to Eli behind the stand. Hey, man. You good? You've been running nonstop. Eli gave a tired smile. Yeah, just short-staffed tonight. Again? Xavier asked. Yeah, Eli nodded. Happens a lot. People call out or just don't show. Darren doesn't replace them. He says we're tight on budget. So I pick up the slack. You're not even scheduled tonight, are you? No, Eli admitted. But I knew it would be chaos. I live close. Figured I could help. Xavier stared at him. You do this often? Eli looked down, then back up. Honestly? Almost every week. Before Xavier could reply, Darren stormed out. Eli. You're not even on tonight. Why are you here again? Just helping, sir. You're making the rest of them look bad, Darren snapped. You want to work extra? Fine. But don't make a show of it. Eli stayed quiet. Xavier clenched his jaw. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't break cover. Not yet. Instead, he turned to the other valet, same guy who'd shrugged earlier. You gonna help park this next car? The guy scoffed. That's Eli's thing now, isn't it? It hit Xavier hard. The problem wasn't just staff shortages. It was culture, entitlement, complacency, and Darren letting it rot from the top. But Eli? Eli was the kind of employee who kept the place alive despite the odds. Xavier had seen enough for one night. But he wasn't done. Tomorrow he'd be back. And this time he'd push harder. Xavier returned the next afternoon, buttoning up the same uniform shirt, cap pulled low. The air was humid and the sidewalk radiated leftover heat from the morning sun. He arrived an hour before the dinner rush, hoping to see the place in transition, how it operated when pressure hadn't peaked yet. The valet stand was quiet. A single car idled near the curb, waiting for a handoff. Inside the booth, a short, wiry guy with headphones tucked behind his ears was scrolling through his phone. His name tag read Rico. He didn't look up. Xavier stepped closer. "Where's everyone?" Rico didn't remove the headphones. "Shift change. They're late." "You're early. You're not gonna take that car?" Rico glanced at the sedan. "I'm on break." The driver inside the car honked once, politely. Still, Rico didn't budge. He kept scrolling. Xavier dropped his duffel on the sidewalk and jogged over. He greeted the guest, an older woman in a navy pantsuit, and took her keys with a smile. She looked relieved. As he parked the car down the ramp, he quickly scanned the garage. Fewer than a dozen cars were down there, but the lot was tight. Some spots had cones marking broken sensors. Others were double parked to squeeze more in. The place hadn't seen maintenance in a while. By the time he got back up, Rico had disappeared. A different valet, tall with bleached curls and a silver chain, leaned against the wall near the booth. "You're the new runner, right?" he asked, not bothering to offer his name. Xavier nodded. "That's right." The guy gestured toward the restaurant doors. "Talk to Darren if you want shift assignments. I'm off in 10. Inside, Xavier found Darren leaning over the hostess station, chatting with one of the servers. Neither noticed him for a few seconds. "What do you want?" Darren asked, his tone flat. "Just checking in. Want to make sure I'm slotted in right. You're with the other temps. Park cars, don't crash them, don't talk back. That clear?" Xavier held his stare. "Crystal." He turned to leave but caught the hostess glancing sideways at Darren. Her expression was closed off, guarded. She quickly turned her attention back to the reservation list. By 6:30, the lot was nearly full, and only 3 valets were on duty: Xavier, Rico, and a new guy named Malik who barely spoke and seemed too green to move cars confidently. Rico kept disappearing into his phone, and Malik was constantly checking over his shoulder like he was afraid of making a mistake. Xavier handled the bulk of the cars again. He didn't complain. That wasn't the point. He needed the truth to unfold naturally. At 7:15, a black Escalade pulled up, music thumping through custom speakers. The driver, a man in his 30s wearing designer sunglasses, stepped out and handed the keys to Rico. "Don't scratch it," he said. Rico took the keys without a word, then whispered something under his breath as the man walked inside. Xavier caught it. "What did you say?" "Nothing." "You sure?" Rico scoffed. "I said the guy's probably got more money than sense. Drives like he's compensating." Xavier didn't respond. He just watched as Rico drove the Escalade way too fast down the ramp, tires chirping as he turned the corner. When he returned, Xavier pulled him aside near the valet booth. "You always talk about customers like that?" Rico looked at him like he was crazy. "You're new. You'll get it. Half these people treat us like we're furniture. You don't have to kiss up to 'em." Xavier kept his voice level. "There's a difference between not kissing up and being disrespectful." Rico didn't answer. He just walked off, casually flipping his sunglasses down. At 8, Eli showed up again. He wasn't scheduled. Xavier knew that because he'd checked the shift board in the employee hallway earlier. But there he was jogging in, already tying his apron as he arrived. Was Malik supposed to be alone out here? Eli asked, already scanning the incoming traffic. "Rico's around," Xavier said. "Somewhere." Eli sighed quietly and jumped right in, helping with tickets, moving cars, reorganizing the tight lot to make space for the next wave. By 8:30, the valet stand was moving efficiently, but only because Eli had taken over dispatching and organizing without being asked. He kept things calm even when guests got impatient. He offered apologies, jogged when needed, and redirected angry customers with a kind word. Once, a man in a gray blazer started raising his voice over a supposed scratch on his bumper. Eli didn't flinch. "I'll call the manager," he said. We'll take pictures and document everything. No problem at all, sir. The man calmed. Xavier noticed Darren never came outside. Why are you doing this? Xavier asked when the rush slowed again. Eli glanced over, wiping sweat off his forehead with the back of his wrist. Doing what? Coming in when you're not scheduled. Fixing things. Eli hesitated. Because if I don't, it falls apart. And when it falls apart, the guests complain and some of us can't afford those complaints. You afraid of getting written up? Not exactly. He looked away, eyes settling on the curb. I've got a younger sister. She's finishing community college. I cover rent, groceries. This job's stable. Barely, but stable. If it goes under, I'm back to square one. Before Xavier could respond, a loud bang echoed from the garage. Then shouting. They both ran. At the bottom of the ramp, they found Rico standing beside the Escalade. The passenger side mirror dangled by its wire. A concrete pillar bore fresh black scrapes. I misjudged the angle, Rico muttered. We can just buff that out, right? Eli stepped between him and the vehicle. You were going too fast again, weren't you? Rico's jaw tensed. Don't act like you're the boss. Xavier looked at both of them. You report accidents like this, right? File it with Darren. Rico laughed nervously. Darren doesn't care. He says not to bring him problems unless someone calls the cops. Eli's voice dropped. That's not how it's supposed to work. Xavier pulled out his phone and snapped photos of the damage. Hey, what are you doing? Rico asked. Documenting, Xavier said. If the guest finds this and we didn't report it, guess who they're coming after? Rico threw up his hands and walked off. Eli looked at Xavier. You're not like the others. You're new, but you don't act like it. I've worked in places like this before. Eli narrowed his eyes. No offense, but you don't move like someone who just parks cars. Xavier didn't answer. He just turned back toward the ramp. Later that night, after the last car was returned, Xavier approached Darren outside the employee entrance. That Escalade passenger mirror got clipped. Darren didn't even blink. Did the customer see it? Not yet. Then park it facing the wall and keep your mouth shut. Xavier stared at him. That your usual policy? Darren crossed his arms. You're a temp. You don't get to question policy. You want to keep this gig, do your job, and stop playing hero. Xavier nodded once. Got it. He walked away, but every step confirmed what he already knew. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming back as Jordan. He was coming back as Xavier Owens. And he wasn't asking questions anymore. Xavier arrived in his own name the next morning, no cap, no uniform, just a tailored navy jacket over a white shirt, slacks, and a pair of leather shoes that said he didn't come to valet cars today. He walked through the front doors of the restaurant at 10 sharp, hours before opening. The general manager, Marla, was already reviewing invoices in the main dining room. She looked up, startled. Can I help you? He extended a hand. Xavier Owens, owner. Marla blinked, stood quickly, and took his hand. Of course. I didn't expect. I know. That's the point. I need to speak with Darren. Now. She nodded and made the call without hesitation. Darren arrived 7 minutes later, walking fast, but not fast enough to hide the unease in his posture. He recognized Xavier immediately. I didn't realize you were visiting this location, Darren said, trying to sound composed. You've had 2 weeks' worth of customer complaints, 3 service incidents, and a revolving door of part-time staff. It's long overdue. Darren shifted. We've been short-staffed. Working on solutions. Xavier gestured toward the back hallway. Office. Now. Inside the manager's office, a small room with a mismatched desk and a coffee-stained filing cabinet, Xavier closed the door behind them. I've been working here, Xavier said plainly. As a valet. For 2 nights. Darren's face didn't move, but his eyes did. I didn't know. I know you didn't. Because you don't pay attention. And that's exactly the problem. Darren opened his mouth, but Xavier cut him off. Let's skip excuses. You've been letting staff show up late, disappear mid-shift, disrespect customers, and damage vehicles. You've ignored reports. You've dismissed legitimate concerns from your most reliable employee. And you've allowed a toxic attitude to fester unchecked. Darren finally spoke. It's difficult to manage with the hours they give us. The budget's tight. We're trying to stretch. You don't stretch by silencing the only person holding the place together, Xavier said. You stretch by leading. You haven't been doing that. There was no yelling. No raised voices. Just the weight of the truth pressing down. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately, Xavier said. You can hand over your keys and access cards to Marla. Darren didn't argue. He just stood there stunned. Then he turned and left. Xavier waited until he heard the front door open and close before stepping back into the dining room. Marla was still there, watching from a distance. Let's bring in the staff. Valets, hosts, servers, anyone scheduled to work tonight. I want them in the training room by noon. By 12:15, 11 employees were seated around a set of folding tables in the break room. A few looked confused. Some were quiet. Eli sat near the back, arms crossed, face unreadable. Xavier stood at the front. My name is Xavier Owens. I own this restaurant, and I've spent the last 2 nights working beside some of you. No one moved. I've seen what's happening here. I've seen people show up late and leave early. I've seen shortcuts, carelessness, and disrespect. I've also seen something else. I've seen one person carry more weight than anyone else night after night because he cared enough to step in when no one else would. He looked toward Eli, who stared back but said nothing. I fired your manager this morning, Xavier continued. That change is already done. Now we start fixing the rest. He turned to Rico, seated near the front, arms folded tight across his chest. You've had multiple opportunities to act professionally. Instead, you've chosen to clock in and check out. You've spoken about customers in ways that violate our policy. You've driven recklessly, damaged property, and failed to report it. I'm ending your employment effective now. Rico straightened in his seat. That's it? No warning. You had warnings. From your coworkers. From common sense. You ignored both. Rico stood up, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. Xavier turned back to the group. For the rest of you, this isn't about punishment. It's about standards. Starting tonight, we're rotating in senior staff from other locations to support the transition. We'll be reviewing shift coverage, pay structure, and performance expectations. And we're introducing a new on-site operations lead. He paused. Eli. Every head turned. Eli blinked. Me? You've already been doing the job, Xavier said. Quietly. Consistently. You've earned more than a pat on the back. You'll receive a formal promotion, a pay raise, and additional training. You'll report directly to Marla for now. If you accept. Eli nodded slowly. Yeah, I accept. Xavier looked around the room. We're not just fixing the valet stand. We're rebuilding the whole experience for employees and guests. That means better tools, clearer expectations, and a culture where no one gets left behind because someone else decided to coast. A server named Lana raised her hand. What happens if we see stuff going sideways again? You speak up, Xavier said. And people will listen. That's my guarantee. After the meeting, Xavier pulled Eli aside. You didn't just work hard, Xavier said. You worked with integrity. That's what matters. Eli looked down. Felt like I was just surviving most nights. I know the feeling, Xavier said. Survival turns into leadership when you do it for more than just yourself. Eli exhaled, shoulders loosening for the first time. I've got some ideas. Things we could tweak. Streamline. Good, Xavier said. You'll have the space to run with them. That afternoon, Xavier stayed to walk the garage with Marla and Eli, pointing out blind spots, broken sensors, and poor signage. He brought in a facilities crew to patch and repaint key areas. A new priority system for vehicle intake was drafted by the end of the day. And at 5 p.m., Xavier didn't leave. He stood at the back of the valet stand and watched as cars rolled in. Eli was in position, calm but focused. Malik, now paired with a patient senior from another location, moved more confidently. Lana helped guests with umbrellas during a brief drizzle. The difference was immediate, not perfect, but better. Xavier stayed silent, hands in his pockets, watching the team work like they actually cared. Because now they had a reason to. Rain came down steady the next night. A gray sheen covered the sidewalk and the valet stand had been moved under the awning near the front doors. Eli had coordinated it with the new operations lead from Uptown, a sharp-eyed woman named Clarissa who had stepped in temporarily to help transition the site. She wasn't here to micromanage, just to steady the ship while Eli found his footing. Xavier stood at a distance near the edge of the lobby, arms folded, watching without interfering. He'd returned in street clothes, no uniform, no formal announcement. No need. Everyone now knew who he was. His presence didn't cause tension anymore. It kept people alert but engaged. Malik jogged past with a fresh ticket, handing it off to Eli without a word. His posture had changed, more upright, more deliberate. The younger staff were starting to mirror the tone Eli set. Not rushed, not careless, just focused. Inside the lounge, Marla was finishing up the last round of second interviews for new hires. They'd received over 80 applications in 3 days after word spread that the location had cleaned house and was under new management. They'd only accepted 6 for interviews today. Of those, 2 were already shadowing. Both came from other service jobs and had solid references. Clarissa had insisted on that. Xavier stepped outside as Lana approached with a guest. The man, somewhere in his 50s, held a folded umbrella and wore a soaked gray blazer. He looked irritated but not hostile. "Apologies again, sir," Lana said, offering him the parking stub. "We're retrieving your car now. The weather's causing some delays, but it's on the way." The guest nodded slightly, then turned to Xavier. "Is she your assistant manager?" "No," Xavier said. "She's part of the valet team." "Well," the man said, "she's the most professional person I've spoken to in this place all week. Thought you should know." As the guest stepped away, Xavier turned to Lana. "How's it going tonight?" "Better," she said. "Still tight on coverage, but everyone's doing their part." "You've stepped up," he said. "I noticed it last night, too." She glanced back at the stand. "I've worked places where no one ever noticed anything. It's different now. Doesn't feel pointless anymore." Xavier nodded once. "Let me know if you need anything." She didn't thank him. She didn't have to. The tone had shifted. Not because of policies, but because people saw that what they did now mattered. Inside the back hallway, Clarissa was reviewing the new shift structure on a mounted dry erase board. She looked up when Xavier entered. "Still missing 2 night shifts for Thursday and Friday," she said. "But we've got coverage if we pull that part-time guy from Westview. He's flexible." "Bring him in," Xavier said. "Eli's already juggling enough." Clarissa nodded. "He's holding up, but I'm keeping an eye on him. He doesn't say much, but you can see he's still carrying the weight. He's used to covering for people," Xavier said. "Now he's trying to lead them. That doesn't switch off overnight." Clarissa capped the marker. "I'll reinforce boundaries. He shouldn't be here more than 12 hours a day. If he stays late again after close, I'm locking the door behind him." Xavier gave a rare smile. "He won't argue with you." "Already tried," she said. "Didn't work." Later that evening, Xavier pulled Eli aside during a lull. They stepped into the alley entrance near the back, away from guests and the noise of the kitchen. The rain had slowed to a mist. "You've got the team tracking," Xavier said. "I can see it." Eli leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Still some friction. Malik froze earlier when 2 cars came at once. "We handled it, but he's not there yet." "He wasn't ready to quit this time," Xavier said. "That's a start." Eli nodded. "Lana's been helping train the new girl, Jamila. She's sharp, picks things up fast. You trust her?" Eli looked at him. "Yeah, she's not afraid to speak up." She flagged a customer earlier who tried to slip her cash off the books. Told him no, reported it, logged everything. "Good," Xavier said. "That's the kind of thing we use to miss. Or ignore." Eli hesitated, then asked, "You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come undercover?" "I try not to," Xavier said. "Because the answer makes me uncomfortable." Eli didn't press. He didn't have to. By midnight, the restaurant emptied out. The last guests left in rideshares and the final valet ticket was returned. Clarissa was doing final walkthroughs in the garage when a call came over the radio. It was Lana. "We've got a guy on the side lot. Says he used to work here. Won't leave." Xavier and Clarissa arrived together. A man stood near the side gate in a wrinkled hoodie, hands in his coat pockets. It was Rico. "I'm not here to cause problems," he said quickly. "I just want to talk." Clarissa kept her distance. You're not allowed on the property. I know. I got another offer. But they're asking for a reference from here. If I don't get it, I'm screwed. Xavier stepped forward. You weren't fired because of a single mistake. I know that, Rico said. I messed up. I was pissed off. I thought the job was a joke. But I've got rent due Sunday and they won't take my app without a signed letter. Clarissa looked at Xavier, waiting. Xavier stared at Rico for a long moment. You'll get your letter. It'll say you worked here. It'll include your start and end dates. Nothing more. Rico nodded. That's fair. But listen to me carefully, Xavier added. You ever speak about guests that way again, in any job, it won't be a letter you're worried about, it'll be a lawsuit. Understand. Rico didn't argue. He just turned and walked off into the night. Clarissa exhaled. You didn't have to do that. I know, Xavier said. But maybe it helps him think twice next time. The next morning, Xavier sat with Marla and Eli in the main office reviewing the early week reports. Tips are up 22%, Marla said. Fewer guest complaints. Return visits already climbing. Eli leaned over the table. We've still got gaps. The garage needs better lighting on the lower level. And the old ticket software is glitching again. Approved, Xavier said. Find a better vendor. Replace it before month's end. Marla closed the folder. And we're back to full weekend staffing as of Friday. No coverage holes. Eli looked surprised. Already? We didn't just flip a switch, Marla said. You made people want to work here again. That's rare. Xavier turned to Eli. This place isn't fixed. But it's not collapsing anymore. And that's because of you. Eli didn't answer right away. Then he said, I'm not used to hearing that. Get used to it, Xavier said. You're the reason we didn't lose this location. After the meeting, Xavier walked the front curb one last time before heading back to headquarters. The rain had stopped. The sidewalk was clean. The valet stand stood organized, radio clipped to the side, umbrellas stacked neatly in a crate. The new sign-in sheet was laminated and mounted. Everyone clocked in and out now. No exceptions. He stopped when he saw Lana walking Jamila through the evening prep checklist. You covering tonight? He asked. Just until 8, Lana said. Jamila's closing. Jamila nodded. I've got it. Lana's been showing me everything. Xavier looked at both of them. You too good. Lana nodded. Better than good. He didn't say anything more. Just gave a short nod and stepped back. There was nothing left to fix right now. And that was the point.